love this state, the fan base, and the coaches. And I'll be staying home at the University of Tennessee.
That was the moment George MacIntyre committed to Tennessee. Welcome into the On3 studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Monday morning. A lot of action over the weekend, especially in the transfer portal, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, we got to talk about the major QB domino that just fell. Now, we got the top 3 QBs in the 2025 cycle committed because George MacIntyre just came off the board. You see Bryce Underwood, he committed to LSU on January 6th. Julian Lewis, longtime commitment of USC, just reclassified himself from 2026 up to the 2025 class. So now, as it stands, all 3 quarterbacks in the top 3 are committed. So we just talked with Chad Simmons last night. He thought it was trending in Tennessee's direction, but now it's done. Tennessee lands the 6'5.5" gunslinger from Brentwood Academy in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, MacIntyre chose the Volunteers over LSU and Alabama, but really, this couldn't have gone better for Tennessee. You see, LSU, they landed Bryce Underwood a couple weeks ago. Then Nick Saban retired. So really, I mean, where was the competition? Tennessee, they get their guy, and they get him early in George MacIntyre. That's important. We're going to talk to Austin Price from VolQuest in a couple of minutes to talk about the impact that George MacIntyre could have on Tennessee recruiting. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, the transfer portal. It was also active this weekend. We talked about it on Thursday, but some big moves went on between Friday and today. Major portal moves. Caleb Downs to Ohio State. That was a shocker. A lot of people thought that Georgia was going to be the favorite. Offensive tackle Caden Proctor, he goes from Bama to Iowa. Not a big surprise because he's originally from Iowa. Remember, he flipped from Iowa to Alabama a couple days before signing day, like 48 hours before signing day. Amari Niblack, tight end from Alabama, he commits to Texas. Texas putting together a stellar transfer portal class. And then we got wide receiver Dante Cephas. He's leaving Penn State. A lot of competition for him, but he will be headed to Kansas State to figure it out and continue on with his career. So we saw a lot of portal moves, some big ones. Let me know what you guys think. What was the biggest surprise? It had to be Caleb Downs, right? I mean, Amari Niblack, we thought was going to Texas. We thought Dante Cephas could end up at K-State, and we knew Caden Proctor was most likely ending up at Iowa. But boy, did you guys see Caleb Downs to Ohio State? Let me know, comment section below. Okay, so everybody get settled in because we got a lot to cover today, and I'm excited to get all into it. I told you, we got Austin Price from VolQuest. Also going to talk some Florida State recruiting with Michael Langston from War Chant and Auburn. They got Julian Lewis, 5-star quarterback on campus, his first big visit since his announcement last week. We'll talk Auburn Live, Cole Pinkston here in a minute. All right, let's get to it. George MacIntyre Day is here. Just about an hour or so ago, MacIntyre announced his decision to commit to Tennessee. And today I got Austin Price from VolQuest on to talk all about the recruiting impact that MacIntyre could have on Tennessee's 2025 class. We'll also find out who could be the next recruit to commit to the Volunteers. But first, Tennessee fans, exciting time. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're covering all things recruiting, especially Tennessee. So go ahead, hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Austin Price from VolQuest. Big moment today, Austin. Tennessee lands the number 3 ranked quarterback in America. How important is it for this class to have George MacIntyre locked up this early? I mean, February signing day for 2024 is February 7th. So 2025 cycle hasn't even officially started, and Tennessee gets their guy.
It's huge. And you already got a 4-star tight end, and Jack Van Doorslayer, committed to Tennessee on the offensive side of the ball. Tennessee's got some big targets in 25, and George leads the way, right? Like George has done a really nice job of working, kids behind the scenes for, probably a couple of months now. And, he's built relationships with kids. Even if the kids didn't know where George was going, they are interested in this George MacIntyre announcement. And so it's a big deal to get him in the boat, before the calendar turns to February. And now next time Tennessee has a junior day, which will be February 3rd, you can bet George will be in town and George will be working all those players.
Yeah, perfect. Because I wanted to know, what sort of impact will George MacIntyre have on Tennessee recruiting? Well, let's take a look at some of these top targets, starting right there at the top. David Sanders and Josh Petty, 2 elite offensive tackles. Both will probably be 5 stars before the cycle's over. Josh Petty, a 4-star, but ranked number 18 overall. David Sanders, number 2 overall. Tennessee could use these guys to block for George MacIntyre. How much of a priority are they? Could Tennessee land both of them?
I think that's an interesting question. Petty grew up a Tennessee fan. And, again, once you kind of become a recruit, you start to distance yourself a little bit from that. But it gives Tennessee kind of a nice little, crack in the door to his recruiter, right? Like it gives them okay, you already kind of had some feelings for Tennessee as a kid. Maybe they're not as strong as they used to be because you're now a recruit and you have to separate yourself a little bit. But you can kind of still dive into those warm and fuzzies a little bit as a recruit. George is going to do that. George is going to tell him, hey, man, I need you being, one of my guys that block for me. He's already working David Sanders. David Sanders and George MacIntyre already talk. They talk quite a bit. And so it's not surprising that those are 2 high-profile names that Tennessee is going to go after in the 2025 cycle. And we'll see kind of what their timeline is and, where Tennessee, kind of can get to in their recruitments going forward.
Yeah, those would be massive pulls, figuratively and literally. Athlete Cam Sparks, he's up next. I want to talk about him. 6'3", 210, out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. He's number 63 overall in the country. What position, first of all, are they recruiting Athlete Cam Sparks at? And Chattanooga, another local guy to get in the boat early, huh?
Yeah, plays at Chattanooga Baylor. Plays on the same 7-on-7 team as George MacIntyre. And those two have a nice rapport. Matt Ray has talked to Cam Sparks. Cam Sparks sounds like he'll do something this spring, early summer at the latest. But I think you see him start to try to, work his way through his kind of top contenders: Michigan, Georgia, Tennessee. Some of the three, those three are some of the main competition, for Cam Sparks. And so to be able to get a guy like him would be big. And Tennessee wants him as a receiver. Michigan, I'm told, is recruiting him more defense. But Cam likes himself on offense. And so, again, I think that's kind of where things are at with Cam Sparks right now as we hit late January.
All right, let's stay in the state of Tennessee. Back to Nashville, actually. Ethan Utley, 6'4", 275, ranked number 103 overall. Is this one that George MacIntyre could have a big impact on? They're from the same city.
Same city. They play each other. Obviously, in D2 AAA in the state of Tennessee, in the private school, big classification. So, yeah, there's no doubt that George could have an impact on Ethan Utley. Ethan Utley's mom had a really good relationship with Coach Rodney Garner when he was at Georgia, and I think she was down in that area as well. So Utleys have known Coach Garner for a long time. So ultimately, that'll be probably the biggest impact that Tennessee could have. But George will definitely have an impact on Ethan Utley, just being a local kid who will continue to work the big defensive lineman from Innsworth. Yeah,
now Utley's on the defensive side of the ball, but on the offensive side of the ball, one more name we got to hit on: wide receiver Redarius Jackson, number 253 overall. Is he one of these weapons that George would like to have around him when he steps on campus?
100%. And another guy he plays 7-on-7 ball with. And so there's going to be a natural tie there. And there's 2 other receivers that George is working really hard. Jamie French, just decommitted from Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Caleb Cunningham, the wide receiver from the state of Mississippi. So, Georgia's working a lot of these guys, but Redarius Jackson is someone who I think will get more and more traction as his recruitment goes on. On3 is the only site currently that has ranked him, at least the last time I looked, which was about a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of he enters the fray at 253. Like, that's how much Charles Power thinks of Redarius Jackson, a kid that plays in the state of Tennessee, West Tennessee, out of the city of Memphis. And had a phenomenal junior year in what was a really, really good team out there in West Tennessee.
I gave you 5 names here. Who do you think on this list, who do you feel best about right now? I know it's real early. George MacIntyre just committed. But of all the names on this list, who do you feel best about landing at Tennessee? Well,
it's easy to say the two kids he knows best, which are Redarius Jackson, and then Cam Sparks he knows better than anybody because he's played longer with Cam than he has Redarius. So it's easy to go with those 2. But out of the other ones, I'm going to go David Sanders.
Wow. That'd be a big one. We all went through the Jordan Seaton saga to Tennessee this season. So now maybe David Sanders will go a little bit more smoothly and actually end up at Tennessee. That would be huge. We'll see what happens. But today, George MacIntyre commits to Tennessee, and there could be more coming. All right, Austin Price from VolQuest. Thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop.
Appreciate you, Josh.
Big visit weekends all over the country, and Tallahassee might have had one of the biggest. So in this video, I got War Chant insider Michael Langston to run down the biggest names at Junior Day this weekend. But first, FSU fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We are covering recruiting 365 days out of the year, and we need you Nole fans to be a part of it. So hit subscribe for me, please. All right. Michael Langston from War Chant, some big names. Let's get started right here at the top. The number one linebacker in America, Zayden Walker, was on campus. Now he's out of the state of Georgia. How did things go for Walker? Him and FSU kind of been talking for a while now.
Yeah, it's really strong. The takeaway from the intel I got from the visit was very strong. I think FSU Georgia is what I hear. FSU Georgia and Miami are the three teams he mentioned, but I think FSU and Georgia are way up there on up there at the top of the podium. And I think the thing you have to do when you're trying to get Peach State guys is you have to show them something unique that differs you from Georgia. And I think from a personal standpoint of how he connects with just this team in general, and Mike Norvell and even Randy Shannon and all these guys and what they've done development wise, I think they've shown that, but it was more personal that I think, like I said, you have to do something that separates them, and they nailed it. I mean, they nailed it really, really good with Zayden. I think those two teams are going to be fighting out. I don't think it's like, everyone thinks like it's a slam dunk for Georgia, and I don't think it falls into that category. I think it will be a battle. I think for me, going in the visit, I would say Georgia for me before they visited, and then after this visit, I'd say it's more 50-50. It's close. It's closer than people expect.
Okay, yeah. Georgia heavy favorite heading in, but getting them to Tallahassee this early is big. All right, another big-time visitor. Wide receiver Jamie French, fresh off his decommitment from Alabama, the number 3 ranked wide receiver in this class. He was back in Tallahassee. How'd it go, Mike?
Yeah, it was really strong like he thought it would. Tramel Jones is his close friend, and FSU quarterback commit was there, and they're really close. He told me, like, I've known him since, Tramel told me I've known him since he was in 7th grade. So this isn't like just a regular quarterback, receiver relationship, which is usually really good. But I think overall FSU did a really good job of just forget, Tramel's in the picture. It's more, this is about you, Jamie, and what you do. And Jamie, told us clearly FSU was number 1. He actually said definitely when I talked to him. And so you really sense, like, even before this visit, that even before the Saban news, that it was close to 50-50. Now I think FSU's definitely setting the pace in this recruitment. They feel good. I know the intel around that after the visit was very positive. We know he's going to take a lot of visits. We know he's going to see a lot of schools, but I think FSU is really setting the pace, not just from a football standpoint. He sees what FSU did with Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, these guys, and how receivers are so utilized in unique ways compared to maybe other places where, it's mainly just, hey, you're going to throw me the ball, where FSU is more, they do a lot of blocking, they do a lot of running, they use the receivers in run situations. And I think he just loves what the way he feels when he's on campus. It's a different feel. Like when you listen to him talk about FSU, other places he's talking about, yeah, this place is great, they do this program, do this, but the feeling when he's there at FSU is different. The connectability to the staff, the connectability, knows a lot of the players. He's close with Luke Crumahawk. He's close with Charles Lester. He's close with a lot of these players that are already on the team. His quarterback's going there. I mean, there's a lot of ties and connections, I think, that makes him feel comfortable. That's going to be, I think, a difficult thing to break for a lot of teams. Certainly they're going to try, but I think FSU certainly sits in a pretty good spot so far.
Yeah, and Jamie French going to be one of the most highly coveted wide receivers in America coming off that decommitment from Bama. Speaking of decommitments from Bama, Zion Grady, one of the top edges in the country, number 40 overall. He was in Tallahassee this weekend. I think it was his actual first visit since that breakup with Alabama. Now, he's going to hit Georgia next weekend. Not in any rush to decide, but what are you hearing on Zion Grady and where the Noles stand after this Junior Day trip?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, we're waiting to talk to Zion, but we still got intel, plenty of intel that went around the visit. I think the most interesting thing is the coach that he's closest to. Now, I'm not talking about closest as in FSU, and this is the staff he deals with, but he's very close to Coach JP, John Papulis, over there, the defensive end coach. He said that guy is the one I'm closest to, like out of anybody. So that spoke a lot to me of the way he views FSU. We've talked before, Josh, that he worked out at FSU at Seminole Showcase. He's visited FSU around 3 times last year. There's a very strong high tie to FSU. I think development is a big deal of what he likes so much about FSU. It's probably also why he's visiting Georgia. They also do a really good job as far as that goes. And then you have Auburn in there as well. I think FSU and Auburn, for me, are the 2 teams that I hear the most buzz about. And certainly I think FSU maybe even a slight advantage of because they're the most recent visit. And I think he's not a kid that's overly energetic. Even when you talk to him, when I've interviewed him, he's not a kid that's going to tip too much, but people around him can tell me this type of visit really seemed to move the needle as far as comfortability and development. And that's 2 of the biggest things I think with Zion. So they're going to be a strong factor. And we've seen this before that it's tough to get kids out of that state of Alabama. So that will be a challenge. But at the same time, I think they're ahead of the curve of what they usually are as far as a relationship, because there's a 2 and 3 year relationship where I think they got really good about how he views FSU in regards to Grady. And so I think right now I would say it's an FSU Auburn battle, and it's a close one.
Yeah, always tough to pull those Alabama players out of the state of Alabama. Now, Gregory Thomas, he's the last prospect I want to talk about on this list that was on campus. He goes 6'2", 185, a very rangy, athletic defensive back down there at American Heritage. Now, he had a great time. Does it sound like this one might be ready to close?
Getting close. It feels like you're getting close. Obviously, Pat's there. He's American Heritage, a legend over there. We've seen already they've added 3 American Heritage guys from the portal: Earl Little, right, Marvin Jones Jr., Devontae Brown, and we'll cover a few more in this piece. But Gregory's one that I think's been really sold on FSU. There's a comfort level that's different. Obviously, you would expect that with Surtain there, but it's more than just Surtain. I think it's what they do with their DBs that really resonates with him, and the defense. I think the guy that doesn't get enough credit for FSU recruiting, and you don't hear his name a lot, is Adam Fuller, the defensive coordinator for FSU. He is extremely involved in all these defensive recruitment, and I think he's played a big role in helping FSU as what has Mike Norvell. So this is one that I think is close. I think he's going to visit maybe Miami soon, and maybe a few other schools. But he's one that I would put on the Clay's radar, and I certainly feel good about the spot that FSU's in currently with this one.
So that leads me to my next question. Who do you think could be next to commit? Now, it doesn't have to be somebody on that list. It could be somebody on that list. But just in general, who do you think right now for 2025 could be the next recruit to commit to Florida State?
Yeah, I think for me, it would be Gregory Thomas, DB we just covered, and Tavion Wallace, because Tavion's been there 3 times. This is his 3rd time. Every time, and I watch what kids say when they go on different visits. He's never said anything else, anything like this with FSU, or other teams. Is like he's always said FSU's number 1. He said that again this weekend. I checked with a little bit more intel, and they feel very good about their chances. And it feels like the way he's talking and the body language that he's about ready to do it. So I'd say Tavion's probably the highest. And then behind him, I'd say Gregory Thomas. Excuse me. And then after that, I'd say a guy they made the biggest surge for, in my opinion, was running back Byron Lewis, who's out of American Heritage as well, 4-star running back. They're certainly very involved with Usman Chromo and certainly Alvin Henderson. But I've heard this guy is right there in that group as far as how they view him. He was formerly coached by Pat. He knows Pat well. There's a great relationship with Yak. And if you remember, this was a visit that was set up very quickly. They got him on campus, or should say very quickly as far as in the later parts of the week that, hey, they want to get it done. He got there. He raved about FSU. He called FSU his top contender when he talks about other schools. Ohio State's been the team that you hear the most RPM about, but I've heard that FSU is the team that's on his mind after this visit. So I think there's been several big moves, but I think those two guys, but I think Lewis is one to definitely, they've made a major jump as far as in that recruitment.
All right, Mike. Well, it was a big weekend in Tallahassee. You guys, let me know, comment section below, who do you think FSU can pick up that was on campus over the weekend? Let me know in the comment section below. Mike Langston from War Chant, thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop today, talking a little FSU recruiting.
Anytime, Josh.
Auburn's 2024 wide receiver class could be the key to the Tigers landing a 5-star quarterback in 2025. In this video, we're going to be talking about Julian Lewis, USC QB commit. He was on campus at Auburn this weekend, and it could be first of many trips to the Plains. We're going to talk to Auburn insider Cole Pinkston to break down the possible flip there of Lewis, and we're also going to talk about who could be the next recruit to commit to Auburn. Let's get it going. But first, Auburn fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. We got this thing blowing up. It's going to be a fun offseason. We want you to be a part of it. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Cole Pinkston of Auburn live. Now, Julian Lewis, the number 10 overall player in the class, number 2 quarterback in 2025. He just announced last week that he's reclassifying, making the jump from 26 up to 25. Now, Lewis is committed to Lincoln Riley at USC, but he's also taken visits. Now, this weekend he was at Auburn, but he also has planned for the next couple weeks Georgia and Alabama. Now, Cole, you spoke to Lewis coming out of this visit. What stood out to him about his time at Auburn?
I think getting to know coaches a little bit better. I don't think he's gotten a big relationship with Hugh Freeze or Ken Austin, Jesse Stone, all these quarterback coaches at Auburn. That was the biggest thing he talked about after the visit. I think he wanted to see the environment and the town of Auburn itself and see how he fits there. Got to go to the basketball game. You know, Auburn basketball's hot right now, so they make sure they take the recruits there. So he seemed to enjoy that. Says he's going to be back, you know, for a 7-on-7 deal in the summer. So I don't know. I'm not sure where Auburn stands. I actually think that USC probably has a good chance of holding on to him, but Auburn's in this and trying to make a move here. I think they definitely got his attention enough to come back again and really give it a look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I want to just, in generally speaking, I wanted to get your opinion on where his head's at, because he committed to USC as a 2026 prospect, but he is from Carrollton, Georgia, and now it looks like he's taking another look at a lot of the schools that are right around, you know, the Georgia southeastern area. Where do you think his head's at in terms of where his commitment stands?
Yeah, I think his commitment's probably strong with USC, but also I am curious how this Georgia visit goes. I want to see that, and I want to see, you know, how he fits with Alabama and what they've got going on now with Kalen DeBoer and their passing attack that they could bring there. So I think he's got a really open mind with all these schools. Even Auburn, I think he's got an open mind with Auburn too. He's going to hear it out. I think he wants to see how Auburn's passing game advances this year. That might be a big deal before he signs, you know, next December, now that he's a 25 guy. So it's going to be – there's going to be a lot of visits taking place. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Now, Auburn finished the 2024 cycle really strong, so no surprise that they are starting off 2025 really strong. I want to go over a couple of names that I think could be the next prospects to commit to Auburn. Now, we'll start here with Micah DeBose, the number 1 interior offensive lineman in America, number 39 ranked prospect overall. Micah DeBose, you feel good about him trending towards Auburn right now?
Yeah, I have a prediction in for him. He was committed to Georgia. Even when he was committed to Georgia, we were hearing there's a good chance this guy ends up back in state. Now, Alabama was in it pretty heavily too, not just Auburn. With the changes at Alabama, that might have set them back a little bit. That's what we're hearing. I think Auburn's in great shape here. I don't know if he's ready to go ahead and make that commitment yet, but he's getting close. He said he's got a top 5 coming pretty soon. Auburn's surely going to be in that, probably Alabama too, maybe even Georgia sneaks back in there. So I do think that Auburn, though, is probably the leader and has an edge right now.
All right, yeah, Micah DeBose said he's going to come out with the top 5, says Auburn going to be in it, but you think Auburn really at the top of it right now as it stands?
Yeah,
right.
I think so.
Another big name, Alvin Henderson, top 100 prospect, 98 overall, 4-star running back. They need a back in this class. Where do things stand with Henderson?
Well, that's one that we've been waiting on for a while. I've had a prediction in for him to Auburn. I thought that it could happen by now, but a lot of things have changed in his recruitment. Cadillac Williams was his lead guy at Auburn. He's no longer with Auburn. I do think that sets back Auburn, but I've done some digging on Alvin Henderson, and he posts pictures at his Oregon visit, his Florida State visit, Miami. All these schools are involved. I do think Auburn holds a slight edge, though, and I still believe that even without Cadillac Williams. Does he commit somewhere else along the way? I'm not sure. I know Auburn's going to be on him until the end no matter what. That's a guy that they really, really covet.
Yeah, and in these junior days, I mean, this is a time where you kind of build up those relationships heading into the spring, get these guys back on campus for a spring practice, and then hit them for that official visit sometime late spring, early summer. That's kind of the formula there. Now, talking about Eric Winters, one of the top DBs in the Southeast, number 110 prospect overall. Do you have a prediction in on him yet?
I do. I have an Auburn prediction in for him. He was at Auburn last weekend, not this weekend, but the past weekend. Went to the basketball game, did all of that, was with a bunch of guys, and he told us Auburn is trying to seal the deal. That was his quote. So we feel pretty good. He's at Enterprise, not too far down the road from Auburn in Alabama there. A guy that Josh Aldridge, Auburn's linebackers coach, I mean, this is his top guy. If it's not his number one guy, he's one or two. So I think that Auburn gets Winters. I think it's probably going to happen soon. That's what we've been hearing.
Okay. Well, we know he's a priority, but also offensive lineman Tavares Dice, number 283 overall. But Auburn worked really hard to fill the offensive line board up in 2024. Now you're seeing them get a little earlier jump on it in 25. How big of a priority is Dice right now for Auburn?
Huge. He was at 4 Auburn games this season, I believe, 3 or 4. He showed up a lot, and then he came back again last weekend. So he usually does a good job of letting us know where he stands, and he's pretty open and honest about his recruitment. And he continues to say that Auburn's really, really high on his list. He won't say they're number one, but we think based on the way that Auburn seems to feel about it, they have a lot of confidence. So we think that he's maybe leaning Auburn a little bit.
All right. So out of these names, Micah DeBose, Alvin Henderson, Eric Winters, and Tavares Dice, who do you think could be next to commit to Auburn?
I think Eric Winters might be the guy.
Okay.
I would have said Alvin Henderson, but now that Cadillac is gone from Auburn, I think he might take his time a little bit more. I say Eric Winters is probably the guy. I just feel like Auburn's put the full court press on him. He loves it, and he seems to like the fit there. Even though Auburn doesn't have a defensive coordinator right now, Josh Aldridge, the linebackers coach, has been a defensive coordinator before, and he's really talked him into, this is how we do things, and he likes it. So I think he's the next guy.
All right. Last question I got for you. Do you think it's going to be harder for Auburn to land 5-star wide receivers in this class because they landed so many last year? And I asked that because Caleb Cunningham, 5-star wide receiver, was on campus. So do you think it's going to be a little bit harder this year for Auburn?
Yeah, it might be. I think I actually asked Caleb Cunningham about that and what he thought about the guys that were in the 2024 class for Auburn. And he was like, man, he said that those guys, he said that I didn't know Auburn could, Auburn did that. They actually got that done. So it seems like, maybe he's impressed by it, but does it hurt playing time for him? He thinks he can play in year one. That seems to be the case here.
Well, hey, you know what? A lot of times kids look at depth chart, but the one thing that trumps the depth chart is winning. And if Auburn can go out there and win with a bunch of 5-star wide receivers, then I don't know if a guy like a Caleb Cunningham would mind maybe sitting on the bench for a little bit before it was his time to shine, as long as the program's winning. So we'll see what Auburn can do. But they are off to a hot start when it comes to 2025. And Cole Pinkston from Auburn Live, thanks for breaking it all down here on the Inside Scoop.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.